honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak about Bill C-15. First, I'd like to begin by congratulating my colleague, the honourable member from Milton, for leading Canada's official opposition on this finance portfolio. I'd like to also thank my other colleagues who have spoken about this very important topic for their informative speeches. And as we all know, this is a bill that will affect all Canadians. Before I get going, I will like to say I will be splitting my time with my colleague from Chilliwack Hope. Mr. Speaker, as the Department of Finance and the Parliamentary Budget Officer have shown, and despite what my friends across the aisle continue to say, when the Liberal government was elected in October, the previous government had left them with a surplus. This has been confirmed time and time and time again. They were also left with a balanced budget. However, in their first few months, they not only burned through that surplus that was left to them, they also drafted a budget that will run a deficit of at least $20 billion in the first fiscal year alone. And over the next 5 years, about $100 billion will be added to Canada's national debt. That also means billions more just to service the interest on that national debt. And this is all despite an election promise to deficit spend on infrastructure. However, the significant portion of that funding is on program spending. That means it's permanent, locked in. And that also means future tax increases or deep spending cuts later on down the line. Mr. Speaker, this plan will ruin any chance of Canada returning to a balanced budget, despite the Liberals promising that in the last federal election. Mr. Speaker, as everyday Canadians know, you cannot live outside your means, and that's exactly what this government is doing. At some point, Mr. Speaker, the bill needs to be paid back. And how is this government planning on paying that back? Which programs, which services will be cut? Let's take a look at the specifics of this bill. Mr. Speaker, my riding is full of small businesses, and as we all know, small businesses are the backbone to the Canadian economy. Small business owners know that you cannot spend money you do not have. And in order to survive as a business, you must make money. It is for that reason that in my riding, they just don't understand why the government continues to squeeze every last cent from the hands of these valuable job creators. It is perplexing that the Liberals would decide not to help them out. Our government laid the groundwork for a decrease in taxes on small businesses. A decrease the Liberals themselves committed to in the last federal election. But once again, the Liberals have reneged on a promise, another commitment, during that election. According to Finance Canada, this broken promise will cost small business owners an estimated $2.2 billion over the next 4 years. That's $2.2 billion that these businesses could be using to expand their operations, invest in research and development, hire more staff, contribute to the economy, and grow wealth. Unfortunately, the Liberals do not seem to be too concerned about burdening small businesses. As well, Mr. Speaker, agriculture is a crucial industry across Canada, including right here in Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock. It provides the livelihoods for many Canadians, coast to coast to coast. Yet, with all the money this government is dishing out, it neglected to offer any new support to the agricultural industry. The livelihoods of many constituents in my riding are based on agriculture, and this budget completely ignores them. The budget has no plans to improve the movement of grain, and the Liberals have delayed ratifying the Trans-Pacific Partnership. When a budget ignores agriculture, it ignores a huge portion of Canadians. I will say this. While there are many problems with the budget bill, I would be remiss not to mention that there are sections that will be good for Canada. One of those is the government's promise to continue to expand access to broadband internet for rural and remote Canadians. In ridings like mine, many Canadians do not have access to high-speed internet. And as we all know, in today's global economy, not having reliable high-speed internet will cost Canadians jobs and business. The investment of $500 million will go a long way to connecting even more Canadians with a reliable high-speed internet and builds on the progress made by the previous Conservative government, which expanded access to high-speed internet right across rural Canada, including my riding. But again, there are still gaps, and every party committed to fixing those, and we do appreciate that. Our men and women in uniform put their lives on the line every day for our values and freedoms. We, as legislators, need to ensure that members of the Canadian Armed Forces have all the tools, training, and equipment they need to carry out their assignments. It is therefore very troubling to see the Liberal government reallocating $3.7 billion over the next 5 years for future purchases. Large-scale purchases are not a simple process, as we all know, but we need to ensure the funding is available instead of taking that away. This budget did provide some funds to the infrastructure needs of the Canadian Armed Forces, and I believe this is not enough to ensure the long-term viability of our forces. Mr. Speaker, our previous government was responsible for signing trade agreements right across the globe. I was very pleased to see that this government is continuing our work and expanding access to markets all across the world. This would be good for Canadian businesses, absolutely. I hope that the government ratifies the TPP and continues to help Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Trade agreements like the TPP will give Canadians access to about 800 million potential new customers. These types of agreements are crucial in ridings like mine. Mr. Speaker, I've already spoken on the effect this bill will have on small businesses, specifically because their taxes will not be going down, as was promised. This bill will directly hurt families. Families in Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, I should say, are very active. And I think we all agree it's important to keep families active, busy, and having fun. It is a theme that I'm sure is similar in every riding, no matter where we are in this great country. It is not only a trend in sports like hockey, swimming, soccer, baseball, and basketball, but also activities like music, art, and dance classes. Many of these, as I said, are very important to people in my riding. But with the Liberals cancelling the tax cuts for the fitness and arts, families won't be able to cope. It makes it harder for them. Costs related to many of these activities can rise very quickly, as we know. Anyone that has children enrolled in minor hockey knows that all too well. And we all know families work very hard for their money. They deserve a helping hand. I will note that while the Canada Child Tax Benefit will help some Canadian families, unfortunately, it will support fewer middle-class families than the previous universal child care benefit. This bill is eliminating income splitting for families with children, canceling plans to expand tax-free savings account, while at the same time claiming to be helping Canadians. Even the Liberals' so-called middle-class tax cut will hurt families they say they want to help. Given that a large number of families in my riding earn less than $45,000 a year, they will receive absolutely zero from that so-called middle tax cut. Since 2008, the government of Canada has invested over $200 million in my riding for infrastructure. These were important investments in programs like New Horizons for seniors, to municipal infrastructure. Arenas were built, airports were expanded, libraries were built, roads and bridges refurbished, sports fields, and the list goes on. These investments benefited people from all walks of life. I sincerely hope that this government will continue this strong record in investments, not only in my riding, but right across Canada. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal budget is very concerning for all Canadians. As I have said before, they know that governments cannot spend their way into prosperity, because if that, Mr. Speaker, was the case, Ontario would be the economic engine of Canada. And we all know it's far from that.
Have not.
Over a decade of deficit spending, and where has it got us? And that's where we are now. This bill offers higher taxes, billions of dollars in new debt, no plan for creating jobs, and all of this despite being left with a balanced budget and a surplus. When we left office, Mr. Speaker, Canadians had the lowest taxes in 50 years, the best job creation record in the G7. And in just a few months, the Liberals had squandered all of that. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your time. I know my time is running out. I appreciate that, and I look forward to the questions from my colleagues.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Gatineau.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci du discours de mon honorable collègue. J'ai été intrigué. Comme vous savez, nous avons une prestation canadienne aux enfants qui va bénéficier à 9 familles sur 10 au Canada. Elle va élever au-dessus des centaines de milliers d'enfants de la pauvreté. Le député, de l'autre côté, parlait ou faisait l'éloge de la PUJ, donc la subvention de M. Harper aux familles canadiennes. du précédent gouvernement aux familles canadiennes. J'aimerais juste qu'il élabore et nous dise c'est quoi que les familles de sa circonscription lui disent par rapport à la nouvelle prestation canadienne pour enfants et est-ce qu'il préfère qu'on retourne à l'ancienne époque où même les riches bénéficiaient de ce programme-là et les enfants pauvres ne bénéficiaient pas autant. Merci.
L'honorable député, the honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, and I do appreciate that question. Like I said in my speech, the new child care benefit does have its positive features, absolutely. I think it'd be remiss for me to say it didn't. But I think what the overall plan is, our plan was universal. I think that was very important. I think what our plan and where it differs is we preferred to give more money back to the people that earned it, because we believe that them having more money in their pockets, allowing them to spend on priorities that benefit them, is better for the overall economy. And taking from one group and giving from another, when really the overall plan should be, how about we reduce taxes, keep a balanced budget, and spend within our means. I think that goes whether you're a small business, whether you're a family, regardless. I think spending within your means and allowing people more money in their pockets to spend on their priorities is a good thing. And I think we had that plan. We were moving forward. We saw growth in the economy. I think that's very important to know. When you have a strong economy, you have jobs being created and people having that income to spend and keeping the economy moving. So I think, spending for the sake of spending on the government side, I think that sends the wrong message. This bill has to be paid back. And at some point in the future, we will have to pay that back.
Questions et commentaires, questions and comments. The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for an excellent speech. He was talking about the fact that this budget, although it's spending lots and lots of money, is not really going to create a lot of jobs. And I see that from the numbers in Budget 2016, we're only going to change the unemployment rate by 0.3% with all of this $113 billion of spend. Certainly, we've seen the fossil fuel sector hugely challenged, and in my riding, we're very concerned about double layers of carbon taxes and the difficulty that they're having with the oil prices. We know that we've seen job losses in the West and job losses in the East. So I wonder if my colleague could comment on whether there's anything in this budget that is a bright light for creating jobs.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and a great question. There isn't much, unfortunately, to create jobs. I think that's the biggest problem here. Although it was committed during the election that the majority of their deficit spending was going to be on infrastructure, there is some, but there isn't much. Most of their spending is on program spending, which doesn't help. We need to be investing. If we're going to make investments, we need to actually make investments and do what we say. So in terms of creating jobs, not lowering the small business tax rate, that was a mistake. It was promised during the election, not done. That's going to hurt small businesses. They're already, especially in Ontario, they're already being hammered left, right, and center. So why not give them a break? Let them create jobs. Let them create wealth in their communities. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And their so-called middle class tax cut, I said that in my speech. Under $45,000, they get absolutely zero. How is that helping those that need it the most? You just keep squeezing them more on the lower end, the people that they say they want to help. So I think it's completely backwards where this is going. I think, taking more and giving people less of their own income to spend that they work so hard for, it sends the wrong message to Canadians who just want to do better.